Welcome back. Well, yes, Dr. Patience Akwanabong joins us now. She is a professor of political science, Arizona State University, joining us via Zoom. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, your inauguration preparations might have started very early, since you're up this early as well. Well,
Yep.
given all that is playing out, of course, many were shocked by some of those images they saw concerning what happened at the Capitol. But what is the mood at the moment, just ahead of this big inauguration day in the States?
Well, first of all, good morning. And thank you for having me this morning. The mood here, it's kind of interesting. We are all indoors. There's a high security alert. So some of us are not going anywhere today, being Wednesday. Most of us are working from home. And there's also a lot of security issues up there in the Capitol. As your newscaster said previously, there are a lot of National Guards all over the place. And right now, the DC area is kind of like almost like a garrison with a lot of armed personnel, and it's quiet. Normally, there would be a lot of festivities out there, people out there celebrating and waiting for the new administration. So, but that's what it is. And besides the security issues, we're also dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic that has really gone up. Right now, 400,000 Americans have died, and about 24 million cases have been reported. So it's an unusual inauguration, but that's what it is. And but we'll have the inauguration and we'll celebrate mostly virtually and indoors. So that's how it is right now. And we're just happy that finally we've seen this day.
Well, interesting way to look at it, Madam. Given that, I don't think anyone expected this, the kind of build up to this inauguration. What happened at the Capitol was most unexpected, wasn't it? Did anyone see it coming?
Well, we should have. I think we saw it coming. It's been coming for the last 4 years. And so it was hardly surprising. The only thing that was surprising was just how easy it was for those people to invade the Capitol building. But the hostilities and the divisiveness have continued for the last 4 years, especially in the last 2 months since the election. So even the FBI and a lot of security people were not really surprised in the sense that they did hear chattering, they did hear a lot of activities going on social media. So they should have been prepared for all of that. But again, we just grateful that the invaders did not achieve their goals. It did not get worse than it did. 5 people died and a lot of people were injured. And but it could have been worse. So we're grateful for that.
Well, how easy or difficult is it going to be for mindsets to get back to what they know of inauguration, pre-inauguration, or inauguration day itself after today's inauguration happened, especially given the fact that you still have outgoing president supporters out there who'd feel hard done by, and then the incoming president supporters who would be over the moon about the inauguration?
Well, the incoming president, Mr. Biden, has preached the gospel of unity, and he's done it before. He's a uniter, and I'm sure he'll find ways of bringing the country together. But it's going to be a lot of work, and the hostility and divisiveness will probably hinder his ability to achieve his goals, especially in the first 1 year. But I think there's hope, and if the outgoing president gets convicted by the Senate, I think that will also reduce his own capacity to cause further harm in the country. It's going to be, a long process to get back to where things were before 2016 in terms of how Americans see each other. It's really hard these days, even in families, even in families, there are some family members who are not talking to each other because of what has happened in the last 4 years. But there's a way forward, and we'll get there.
Well, just looking at the entire scenario, if he is convicted the second time by the Senate, perhaps that would have been when he's out of office as a president. So that presents a different scenario because there was this conversation as to whether or not there will be protests by his supporters if he's convicted a second time, meaning he may not be able to vie for anything again. What do you see happening? Will it be the same? Will people still be able to go out and protest? Because it's different. He's no longer in power as a new sheriff in town, as they say.
No, I mean, if I think the Senate is going to hear from the House of Representatives. So the thing is, the Democrats need 17 Republicans to convict him. They need 2/3 majority. It's not a simple majority. So if they can get that and convict him, and then they go to the next step, which is a simple vote, a simple majority vote that will bar him from further public office in the future. So again, that will cripple his followers. But so the question is, if that happens, will there be a lot of protests? Will we see what we saw 2 weeks ago? I don't think so, because now the security agencies are on the alert. And given the fact that the only ideology that the outgoing president had was this ideology of hatred, of hostility, of divisiveness, there wasn't, so that held his base together. But with him out of office and with him lacking the ability to come back to public office, it's going to be difficult for him to sustain that momentum, even though in his farewell speech, he told his followers that the movement has just started. But he's not, he was able to feed on the fears and anxieties of a certain, demographics in this country. And that, but by himself, he's not the kind of leader that will have that sustaining power to hold on to the 74 million people who voted for him. In fact, a lot of the 74 million people have also changed their minds, especially after the incidents of 2 weeks ago. So his ability to hold on to that power and to sustain that followership will be hampered by his conviction if he gets convicted and banned from taking public office in the future.
Madam, there is a very, very interesting conundrum, as it would seem. You referenced two of them. In fact, you just mentioned the third one. The first is that we are contending with COVID-19, and with the number of deaths and positive cases reported in the U.S., that's definitely something significant. There's 74 million people or less now, let's say maybe 50 million left, who still support the outgoing president that is there. And then, a whole number of other things, that you have talked about now. The fact that there's quite a number of people in the National Assembly, the Congress in the U.S., that still toward the party line and invariably that of the outgoing president as well. How easy, in your opinion, do you think it will be for the incoming president to mend all these fences, given these challenges that we have just highlighted?
I think he has the capacity to do that. He was in the Senate for many years. About 36 years he was in the Senate, and he was able to walk across the aisle in terms of working with members of the Republican Party. And a lot of those people are his personal friends. I know when it comes to politics, there's no friendship, but as you know, even in Nigeria, sometimes, when we, the masses, see politicians, fighting in public, we think that's it. And then at the end of the day, they're back, shaking hands and they're socializing and all of that. So he has strong connections in the Senate and among the Republicans. That's one. Secondly, he was vice president for 8 years. So he knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak. And he was able, during after the midterm, after the first 2 years of the Obama-Biden administration, the Democrats lost control of the Senate and things were really difficult for the Obama administration. But Mr. Biden, as vice president, was able to negotiate with the Republicans to get a lot of things done. And so he has that relationship with the Republicans in the Senate. And of course, now the Democrats have the majority. It's 50-50. The vice president gets to cast the deciding votes because the vice president is the president of the Senate. And so in some ways, it's going to be easier this time than it was when Obama was the president, as far as the relationship between the White House and Congress. Of course, as you know, the House of Representatives have Democrats in the majority. I think his immediate concern right now will be what to do with the COVID-19 and the economy. So I think for him, those are issues that will have bipartisan support, even though in America, the COVID-19 has been very politicized. But when you lose somebody, regardless of what your party affiliation is. So I think with him focusing on those two issues, COVID-19 and bringing the economy back, he'll have a lot of bipartisan support that hopefully will carry over to other issues that he wants to tackle.
Well, support from the level of government is one thing. Support from the American people is another. Looking at what is already happening within members of the Senate, we realize and we understand that a member of the Senate is already standing against one of his nominees, which will need the unanimous support of all members of the Senate for that particular nomination to stand. I think the nomination for Homeland Security Chief has already been opposed by one of the members who supported President Trump, and that is already beginning to put spanner in the works. And people are saying, well, they might continue to see things like that, but that is, as I said, on a level of government. From the American people, they're saying things will never be the same again from the events of the last 4 years. However, you seem to have a rather hopeful stance in terms of unity for the American people. How do you think that is really going to work, considering just how deep the levels of division and hate have gone?
I think there's hope, and I don't think my hope is baseless because, again, like I said earlier, these 74 million people were supporting, most of them were supporting a man who was able to give voice to their own hate and divisiveness and racism and all of those isms. On the other hand, there were also people who voted for him because he's a Republican. And the evangelicals, the Pentecostals, and a lot of Nigerians in the US who voted because of the issues that the Republican Party has always supported. A small government, pro-life, and anti-gay, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people voted for Trump because of those issues. So but then the Republican Party, if it survives what has happened now, will still have that platform. Remember, in the last election, the Republican Party did not have any platform. In other words, they did not have any issues or ideology. They just said, well, whatever Trump says is what we go. wait, and now Trump is out, okay? So the Republican Party will first of all have to find a way of remaking itself, becoming the Republican Party and not just the Trump Party. And so when it does that, and if it succeeds in doing that, then the Republicans who voted for Trump based on issues like, on traditional conservative issues will still go that way. But those who voted for Trump because he was able to articulate their own anxieties and fears and hostilities and et cetera, when Trump goes out of currency, they too will have to figure out what to do with all of those things that he brought out in them. So I think there's hope. Again, when we've watched Trump up close for the past 4 years, he has the attention span of, well, no disrespect to him, of a 5-year-old. So I doubt that he'll be able to sustain that connection with these people that he didn't really care for, because if he cared for them, he wouldn't have exposed them to COVID-19 the way he did in all his mega rallies and all of that. And a lot of the big people, like the corporations, a lot of the senators, they've kind of walked away from him. So what does he have left? It's just, so for me, just looking at,
which is the issue of media freedoms in the United States, and also the fact that you're getting the first female president, female vice president into that office. First and foremost, I'd like to ask you what major difference this makes or is expected to make for African Americans and, of course, Asians, not to talk about women, the larger demographic. And what are your thoughts on media freedoms moving forward?
Okay, and first, what is just the symbolism, the fact that, like she said, she's there, and every little girl in this country, every Black girl or Asian girl or any non-white girl will know that she too can be the vice president, can be the president. So it just shows that finally, Black folks, Asian folks, minority folks have a place at the table. So even if at the end of the day she doesn't accomplish anything, there's that symbolism. She has broken the barrier. So that means it's going to be easy in the future for other women of color to aspire to that position. So what does that mean for Africans, for Asians? Again, the symbolism. And that's one. Then secondly, I think you asked about the media. Well, the media has, like somebody in Nigeria said to me, the media has been compromised. It's really difficult now to, a whole lot of us, it's a case of unto thy tent, O Israel. People just watch the channel that affirms their own biases about life. And so we'll have to, so the media in the US is kind of trying to also restructure itself and reflect on what it has done in the last 4 years and what its role was in creating the kind of situation that we ended up in with 2 weeks ago. I think you asked a question about African diaspora. Was that the question? I think you asked for
if you want to answer that, but I didn't. I just asked about media freedoms.
Yeah, media freedom. Yeah, well, the media is free here, which is sometimes it's actually a problem, which is something I shouldn't say. I used to be a journalist, so I shouldn't say media freedom can ever be a problem. But the thing is that the media here is starting to self-reflect, to wonder where it went wrong, because some of the media outlets here are so biased that you don't even know, when you read a news story, you don't know how much of that story is accurate or what is spin. And so, so that's also one of the things that have suffered in this country. But the media is free, that's for sure. But the question is, free to do what? Free to build unity, community, or free to continue to build the hostility and hatred going on that we have seen in the last 4 years.
All right, and thank you very much indeed for your time very early this morning. I might add Dr. Patience Akmanobong, Professor of Political Science, Arizona State University.
Thank you. And
All right,
have a wonderful day, you guys.
You too.
Bye.